Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Suzanne Robbins. I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Portland area, and I'll be moderating the Falmouth School Board candidate meeting. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. League of Women Voters policy is not to support or oppose any political party or candidate. It's great to see so many members of this community taking the time to educate yourselves about the candidates. Thank you for being here. This forum is being both live streamed and recorded. So it is being live streamed on the League of Women Voters of Maine Facebook page. If any friends of yours are saying, where can I see it? It will also be on the League of Women Voters of Maine YouTube page. So it can be watched after. Yes.
Are members of the audience visible?
No. In fact, I'm not visible, only them. Thank you for asking that. Okay, the election is June 11th, and there are 4 candidates on the ballot. Welcome, candidates. We have Bridget Cronin, to the audience so they know who you are, Bob Klein, Tiffany Carter-Skillings, and Leslie Zamer. And because I think it's important for you all, you may or may not know the faces of all of your current and former elected officials. I'd like to point them out because there are quite a few here. We have Kathy Hillman Reed, Falmouth School Board, past chair. Waving her hand, she's in the back. And Jean Gulliver, also former school board member. Sarah Julie, a current school board member. Sean Mahoney, a former town councilor.
I forgot to.
Oh. Bryce Hawk, a current town councilor. Yes. Former state senator Kathy Free. And Amy Kuhn, state representative. Thank you. And Teresa Pierce, state senator.
And Tommy Johnson, town councilor.
And Tommy Johnson, town councilor.
Yeah. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Thank you for, I just think it's important because quite often you vote for people and you may not have seen their face or actually know who they are. So it's kind of nice to know because now you can accost them in the grocery store. So there is information about the league and each of the candidates over here. Please pick it up on your way out. So we are here tonight to learn about the 4 candidates on the ballot for the Falmouth School Board, as well as to learn about the work of a school board member. Before we started, you may have seen running by information about the work of a school board. That came off of the Falmouth School Board website. Okay, so just so you know, that's where we got that. Because oftentimes it's not clear to the general public what a school board member actually does. So this candidate night will proceed as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves with an opening statement. Then you'll be asked to respond to questions written by a committee of community members, former school board members, students, and the League of Women Voters. The candidates were not given the questions in advance. Rather, they were given the topics about which they would be asked. The order of the questioning will alternate between candidates and has been established by draw. Each response will be limited to 2 minutes. So that you know how much time you have for each question, a timekeeper will hold up a yellow card to indicate you have 30 seconds and a red card to indicate your time is up. When you see the red card, please finish your sentence and stop speaking. I do reserve the right to interrupt you if you carry on. Following the questions, you will each have 2 minutes to make a closing statement, we think. We may make a decision to do one more question. We'll decide at the end as a team, the 5 of us. We will not be taking questions from the audience, but I do encourage audience members with questions beyond those that I asked tonight to please talk to them on their way out tonight. Reach out to them. Their literature is over here. There are ways to reach them by email or phone. Please ask them if you have questions. I know they want to answer them. Okay, so the format of this forum is moderated question and answer. So as such, there will be no debate on any issue, but rather an expression of each candidate's position on the issue. Now, a few ground rules for the candidates. Please keep your responses within the time allotted. And you don't need to fill the entire 2 minutes if you can make your point in less. If we have extra time, we can do more questions. Please do not challenge, accuse, or state the positions of other candidates in your responses, as there will not be an opportunity to respond. And please don't respond to audience interruptions. Ground rules for the audience. Audience members, we are here to learn about the candidates. To ensure that everybody has an opportunity to learn about all 4 candidates, I ask you please to hold your comments and your applause until the end of the event. This both saves time and ensures that everyone can hear. I'll remind you if that's necessary. You may feel strongly about certain issues, but please keep your opinions and responses to yourself till the end. All candidates have agreed to be recorded. And before we began, we drew numbers to determine the order. And Leslie will go first. So let's begin with our opening statements. Timers. Leslie, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this candidate forum on, and thank everybody for coming to listen to us tonight. My name is Leslie Zamer, and I moved to Maine about 8 years ago with my husband and 2 children. We picked Falmouth for the schools, as you hear most people do. At the time, my son was in 4th grade and my daughter was in 2nd grade. So we have direct and recent experience with all 3 schools, because my son is graduating in 2 to 3 short weeks, and my daughter is a sophomore at the high school. When my son was in the middle school, I led an effort to bring traditional grades back to the middle school, because I felt deeply that these kids needed expectations. They needed to see how they were doing. They needed to learn some executive functioning skills before they went to high school. Since joining the community, I dove right in, and I was a member of the Falmouth Youth Soccer Association board. I helped run the Falmouth Fall Classic for 3 years. I was the registrar. I've been the treasurer of the Falmouth Ski Boosters for a number of years, and every Monday you can find me in the kids' room in the library shelving books. Before moving to Maine, I earned my accounting degree at William & Mary, and I was a CPA. I worked for Arthur Anderson. I worked with large and small government contractors, working with their financial statements, indirect cost submissions, overhead rates, things like that. So I'm very much a nerd, and I love my schedule. So I'm ready to dive deep into the budget of the school board. I love this town. I feel very grateful that my kids have spent their formative years here in Falmouth, and I really want to serve on the board because I want to continue the excellent schools that we've had here, and I want to do it in a fiscally responsible way, knowing that the taxpayers also live in this town and we need to respect them. So thank you.
Thank you. Bob, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Thank you to the sponsors. I see there are 3 general challenges in this environment. These are general with respect to schools in specific. There's a declining enrollment trend, which I expect is going to continue. There's a shift from knowledge-based workers to more trades-oriented workforce. And the third is that there's climbing local property tax burden. Maine is at 5.2%, of the personal income on average. I also think Maine schools, Falmouth in particular, are experiencing two particular and unique challenges. One is that there's an exodus of school children pulled by their families from our school system. And they're leaving earlier, and this is not someone off to prep school, these are middle school youth. The other risk I think we all experience and need to be attentive to is a BVR referendum rejection. BVR is the budget, school budget vote referendum. That's the only budget you get to vote on, not the municipal budget. RSU 4 and RSU 20 in last year both rejected. A rejected budget then goes to a repeated referendum process, which is very cumbersome and expensive to the taxpayers. As I've been out knocking on doors, I've been asked by folks, why are you running? And I've responded in three ways with three distinct points. First, there's 70% of our population that do not have school-age children. I'm in that group. And to a person, in terms of the doors I've knocked on, every one of them has said, we favor and want to support great schools, but we want to do it in a responsible fashion. Second, I want to see the school board drive the process. And I want to do that by asking questions and examining the responses. And finally, I want to restore, and I think we need to restore, the leadership role of the school board, rather than have an advisory sort of role where they listen to presentations of initiatives by administration. I think it should be more activist. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Bridget, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Falmouth Memorial Library and the community for being here this evening. I come to this work from a unique perspective. I'm a former Falmouth student. I graduated from the class of 2000. I'm a current parent. My oldest son is in the inaugural pre-K program. And I'm an educator who understands the needs and demands of the role. I'm not a single issue candidate. I look forward to embracing the whole job. I believe in quality education. I'm a product of quality education. Quality education doesn't happen without our teachers. Our teachers and staff need to feel supported. That's how it's always been here in Falmouth. I believe in strong fundamentals and a back to basics look at our curriculum. I'm encouraged by the move to phonics with the literacy program with the K through 2s in the elementary school. And I understand that quality education requires everything from academic rigor and accountability to the needs of our special education kids and all of the nuances and specific, detailed, very personal aspects of those journeys as well. I understand attracting and retaining teachers and staff in this economic climate can be very challenging. And we have a budget process that we need to revisit. But I work collaboratively by nature. I believe in open-minded, thoughtful discussion. I'm a solutions-oriented team member. Anyone can point out the problems. I believe in transparent communication, sharing opportunities for improvement, good faith negotiations and dialogue. Divisive times require common ground. I'm a former yachtsman, now navigator, and I know that a high tide lifts all boats. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Tiffany, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters, the Falmouth Memorial Library, and I'm deeply appreciative of all of you who are in this room today and for watching by live stream. My name is Tiffany Skillings. My family and I moved to Falmouth approximately 3 years ago in the pandemic. And so we have just recently been able to spread and deepen our roots within the community as we return to post-pandemic life. I work as a clinical director of a distance midwifery program, and much of what I do in that work is focused on policy development. And in coming to Falmouth and trying to become more engaged in our school system, I started with the PTO TIDE group, and TIDE is focused on teaching inclusion, diversity, and equity, not only to parents and caregivers, but to other care members, community members. In doing that work, much of the deep conversations, meaningful conversations that were happening, we continue to ask, what does the policy say? How does the policy support our students in the community as it relates to DEI? And because my specialty is in policy development, that's one of the areas in which that became an entry point for me to say, I'm ready to throw my hat in the ring.
I also am deeply appreciative of the taxpayers' contributions, and I see that we have an increased burden and increased weight on your shoulders as we are getting less money from the state and less funding, and more of that responsibility is on you. I'm hopeful that if elected, we could encourage a process that begins earlier in the year so that we can have really thoughtful decisions about where we can trim some fat and get a little bit more lean on the budget without sacrificing a rigorous, high quality education. Many of you know my husband. He worked in Falmouth for many years at Ocean View.
Thank you. All right, the first question is on the topic of role as a board member. And the first respondent will be Bob. You have 2 minutes. And then it will go in the same order. So it will go Bob, Bridget, Tiffany, Leslie. We'll just keep going around and around. In light of state and local law regarding the functions and responsibilities of school board members, how will you accomplish your goals?
Well, let's start by refining and identifying the role. Last year at this forum, there was a reference made to the landing page, which was still up as recently as November of this year. The landing page of the school board read as follows. Members of the board, while elected by town residents, are not representing constituents in their role on the school board, but rather representing the state. That is misguided. It's legally incorrect. And I raised that this fall by writing to the board and advising them that we have a home rule policy, which is still good law. It's in our constitution in the state of Maine, which says that if it's not regulated by the state, it's decided by you, the citizens. The Maine education statute also, not the board policy, defines what the roles and responsibilities are of the board members. They include selecting and supervising the superintendent. There are 22 of them. I'm not going to recite them. I'm going to touch on 3. I've mentioned 1, the superintendent supervisory role. The second is you determine and assess and adopt the courses of study. And the third one is that you select and approve the education materials. Those are responsibilities of the board. That policy that I mentioned has since been removed and has been substituted by a new policy, TBA. The board's role, in my view, and I think the law supports me in this regard, is much broader than the advisory board seems to be approaching and in terms of what I've observed this year. Thank you. That answers the question.
Thank you, Bob. Bridget, you got it.
The school board works in an oversight capacity. I agree with Bob. It is responsible for evaluating the superintendent, and that's a very big responsibility. One of the ways that I hope to accomplish some of my goals is through the collaboration with the community, because the MSBA does state we have an obligation as school board members to inform the public. One of the ways that we inform the public is now all of the meetings are streamed and you can access them on the website online. Another helpful way to have that collaborative connection as a school board member is surveys. For example, a survey went out to parents and caregivers of current students, so they have the opportunity to give feedback. That feedback will help inform the work of the board moving forward. I believe in balance, thoughtfulness, and pragmatic solutions. I think working in a cohesive, collaborative way is important and adds value to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
If elected, I'm hopeful that my background in collaboration and clear communication will be a strength that's added to that work. With regards to hiring and managing the performance of the superintendent, again, coming back to the strategic compass that we have established that identifies that student voices need to be uplifted, that the community needs to be engaged, that we're supporting our educators through professional development, that these elements can be provided for in policy and utilized as scaffolding for the administrators and educators to do that work.
I really look forward to the opportunity to engage with the community and to encourage increased communication and attendance to the school board meetings. It really works best when we're all invested in the success of our schools. I find that my background in healthcare means that I can have a clear head, have a calm approach in communicating and working with the board of 7 members that work and function as a unit of one. And that's how I intend to contribute this in a spirit of collaboration.
Thank you. Leslie, you have to.
So I think everybody saw the role of the school board scrolling as you came in, so I won't bore you with those details, but I will say that a well-functioning board is essential to a good school system. And there are 7 members and they need to work well together. And they all come from different backgrounds: accounting, lawyer, educator, midwifery, right? Like everybody brings a different tack to the board. The first year, I know I won't know a lot, so I will listen. As my mom says, listen with your ears, not with your mouth. So I'll listen with my ears and I'll try and learn and lean on others and learn as much as I can so I can hit the ground running. I think respectful conversations are essential. We're all not going to agree on everything. There are some tough issues that the board gets a lot, and good people can disagree, right? But as long as you're respectful and have a respectful conversation, we can come to a collaborative end. So, you know, pardon the analogy, but we have a big ship, you know, we're the navigators. We've got 2,000 students, almost 2,000 students, 500 employees. It needs a steady hand at the wheel, and I think I'll end with that analogy there. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is on the topic of handling difficult situations. Hopefully you can see them back there. We tried to make it big so you could see the questions up there, but if you cannot, I also can repeat them each time. So that,
I can read it fine, thank you.
all right. This question, Bridget will respond first. And the question is, the work of a school board can relate to contentious topics and strong feelings can be expressed by parents, students, staff, community members, and other board members. Explain how you plan to proceed in resolving a contentious issue, especially if you do not share the opinion of those expressing firmly held opinions.
So I believe that I lead with compassion. I try to understand things from a variety of different perspectives. I believe in open-mindedness and I try to be humble, but I also try to adhere to a process. The process includes a clear identification of the issue. If it applies, engaging an expert, finding somebody who knows more about whatever the issue is or whatever the contentious topic is and can inform me personally and all of us as a board. I also believe in input. We need all of the stakeholders to be involved in the decision-making process. So in addition to clear identification of the issue, engaging an expert and getting input from the community and other stakeholders, I believe that that creates a flywheel effect that leads to a considered, balanced, and maximized results. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Tiffany, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Again, I started to reference that I have a background in healthcare for over 3 years that really has taught me to navigate difficult situations and at times emergencies with a really clear head. At times to be really decisive, as I am sometimes the lead provider in those difficult situations. That does require excellent communication skills, and part of communication is to be able to engage in good listening, deep listening. I really do want to be able to hear from all of the stakeholders in the community and the varied perspectives that help bring some balance to the conversation and help to inform decisions. The organizational structure of the school board, again, is such that there are 7 members with which to work. It is kind of built in to have some support. The board communicates with a unified voice. And so should not be a situation where I alone am trying to navigate how to respond or how to handle a situation. I do practice humility. So even in difficult situations, even when things go really well, I ask myself afterwards, how could that have gone better? Always looking and striving for ways that we can improve and improve our processes and improve those outcomes.
Thank you. Leslie, you have.
Well, I know for sure there will be times I disagree with people because that's just life, right? And I find that some of my best conversations are with friends when we completely disagree on a topic because I start to look at it from their perspective. You sit, you listen with your ears, and you hear where they're coming from. And then you take a step back and you think about it. You do your research, right? You stay calm. And as long as everyone is respectful in the dialogue, you can move forward. I've been to a lot of school board meetings this year, and I've been struck and really proud of this community when I see one person walk up to the dais and express an opinion on something controversial. And then they sit back down and the next person comes up and expresses the exact opposite opinion. And it never got out of control. And in fact, I saw these two people afterwards go up to each other and have a conversation and say how they respected each other and they disagreed. And I thought that is what defines this community. And I've been really proud to be a part of it. Decent, like I said, in my last 2 minutes, decent people can disagree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Three principles have served me well in serving clients for decades, dealing with difficult situations, litigation and otherwise. One is know who you're working for. Second is honestly, transparently, and cooperatively communicate even with opposing viewpoints and counsel. And the third is to talk, which we do far too little. Let me apply those principles to something which was tumultuous and was in play last year at this time, which was school negotiations with the Falmouth Education Association Union. The union, based on my investigation, breached sort of a concept or construct of good faith by leaking and putting out to parents through teachers a false narrative about what was at stake and what the last offer had been from the school administration. The school administration asked for guidance from their attorneys, and their attorneys said, stand pat, don't respond. I disagree with that guidance. I think it was incorrect. I think that you have to respond to falsehood with correct information. And in that situation, I would have pointed out that we have a childcare program, which I think is wonderful. It's a dramatic recruiting tool. It costs $400,000 that these teachers pay, and their average cost is around $12,000 a year. Any of you have childcare, compare that to what you're paying. I would mention that it's not in the contract. You can't find it in the budget. And it exists because the good faith of the school administration and the board wants to put that out there to help folks get childcare coverage. That should have been mentioned, and the board should have spoken.
Thank you, Bob. All right, the third topic for the evening. Setting students up for success, and the first respondent will be Tiffany. I'll read it and then this. Student success can be measured in many ways. What are your ideas of fulfilling the responsibility of creating a school climate where ethical and responsible behavior can flourish? Please tell us what are the shared and core values that a school board must establish and implement.
I believe the school board has already established a set of core values, again, coming back to the strategic compass. When we think about the part that relates to North, developing a curriculum or a learning program for K through 12 that's dynamic, it's cohesive and responsive. That is one of the guiding lights for creating a school climate where ethical and responsible behavior can flourish. East also is another guiding principle that no matter what policy is provided for, what we're providing for in the budget, what we are guiding in the process of working with the superintendent, East tells us that we are to provide and promote a climate and a culture that fosters wellness, not just physical wellness, but social, emotional wellness and mental wellness. It's interesting. I know that this topic is going to come up a little bit later, but I will mention that there is some really deep conversations that are happening around the use of personal tech and how that relates to our children's mental health. I think that's one of the areas that we should be continuing the conversation, continuing the work. As many of you know, the book, The Anxious Generation, is making its rounds and is helping to inform that. We have community members who are doing research on the impact of our children's well-being. And I would really like to see the school board continue to consider what to do in terms of the cell phone use and other private or personally owned tech.
Leslie. So, the school's vision is navigating creative pathways for courageous, compassionate, and fulfilling lives. And what stands out for this question is the compassion. And I've watched over the years, my kids started in elementary school, how the school took them to St. Elizabeth's Pantry. They did school trips there to help sort the clothes for the less fortunate. Then in the middle school, they have the service club that my son was very involved in. Then they go to high school and they do trips to Ocean View. They play cornhole. They have ice cream socials. They do crafts. There's a deep connection between the school and the broader community of Falmouth. And they are teaching these children all along the way at age appropriate levels that they're bigger than themselves, right? And that they are part of a bigger community and it takes a village. And that comes from the top down and that comes from the teachers. The teachers do the service learning. The teachers do the club in the middle school. The teachers take them to Portland, to St. Elizabeth's, and attracting and retaining high quality teachers so that they feel valued in the school is a really important part of this because they are with our kids all day long. And the kids have, if the students have a good relationship with the students in the school and know that the teachers value them and they trust them, then it's a great environment for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Setting up students for success. I don't know if anyone is aware that I am the most recent graduate of any of the candidates for school board. I went to SMCC and got a certificate in construction technology in May of 2023, 1 year ago. I was hoping my wife, who's a very talented designer, Joy Foster, would bring me on and sort of a design build type of approach. And she said, living together may be enough. Going to SMCC, I worked side by side on construction projects in a building lab with Gen Z students. And I want to say that I was impressed by a subset of that group of students in terms of their ability to work with others and their communication to me that they said, in school, I'm not a good student. I wasn't a good student. If you show me how to do something, I can learn it. If you give it to me, I can duplicate it. We are not keeping those students on our campus. You want to talk about diversity? Diversity is having people from different backgrounds with different skills all in one place. Those students, I'm told, are being sent to PASS. You may know this, you may not. PASS right now is on a lottery system. You have a 1 out of 3 chance of getting in. There's 3 times as many applicants as there are students. It doesn't start until the junior year. You're discouraged to apply before then. It's a partial day program, which means that you're absent from the Falmouth campus every morning, 5 days a week, bused to and from another campus. I believe this should be brought back on our campus, that we have lots of hands-on learners. I know neurodiversity is the concept, but I talk about different learning styles. It's more basic. I can relate to it. And we have those folks in our midst, and I think they're feeling a lot of pressure, not having an opportunity to be more hands-on. I'd like to give it to them.
2 minutes.
So you're going to catch on to a theme for me, and that's the teachers, right? Modeling in the classroom every day. That helps to create a school climate where ethical and responsible behavior can flourish. I believe that honesty and expectations and accountability put forward by our teachers is something that our students, my son, even at 5 years old, is seeing every day in the pre-K program. I think character skills, as they're modeled by teachers and members of the school board, are absolutely essential in showing all of the students in our community how important it is to have that kind of guidance from the top down. I also believe that a work ethic, again, by teachers and the school board remaining committed to their craft and the transparency that now exists with the school board will help our shared core values be best expressed. Thank you.
The fourth question is on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Leslie, you will be first. Falmouth has a standing committee on intercultural awareness and inclusion. How has the work of this committee contributed to equity and inclusion in Falmouth schools, and what should be their focus going forward?
Thank you. So the committee has done some good work recently. They passed policy, I think it's ABAAA and ACA, and that was a direct result of an equity audit that was done at the school. I've been talking to a lot of people, knocking on a lot of doors, talking to other moms on the sidelines, and it wasn't people don't know about the equity audit, but I read it and I was shocked by the results. Pervasive hate speech in the schools, but it goes beyond the diversity and the hate speech. The equity is girls are underidentified for gifted and talented programs. Girls are underidentified for special ed. The curriculum is not consistent between classes and from one class to another. 504 plans, which help students with disabilities, don't pass from grade to grade, so they have to start over. So I applaud the board for taking on these issues this year. They need to support all learners, right? Everyone in the school needs an equitable access to learning. So I do applaud them for that. And I think we can do two things at once. I think we can set high expectations for academic performance, and we can create a safe, inclusive environment for our students to flourish. And I believe that's what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, DEI. I endorse diversity, equity, and inclusion in businesses, schools, and in our community as a whole. As an attorney, I have been trained in harassment prevention and equity and inclusion for 10 years as part of mandatory CLE. As an attorney, I have assisted businesses in developing protocols, policies, and trainings for DEI since the mid-teens. I support personally DEI principles wholeheartedly. That having been said, I question at times the cost of DEI and the effectiveness of DEI. Lawrence Alexander came to speak and present himself to us in November, and in advance we were solicited, questions were solicited in writing. I submitted one November 21st. I cited two studies, a Harvard Business School study and a study from the Journal of Diversity in Higher Education in 2020, both of which questioned the efficacy of DEI programs in schools. Not to say they shouldn't be there, but they questioned how do we measure it. My question that I asked was, how do we measure that? It wasn't read as a question. And when I spoke to the superintendent later, she said, we had so many questions, I'll get you an answer. She got me an answer, which was not responsive on December 21st. There is much work to be done in this area. It tends to be a divisive topic. I don't believe that some of that work, contrary to perhaps other panelists, has been well received and well and respectfully addressed in public forums. I've listened closely to the January 8th tape of a public forum in which one individual was called out, shouted out as being a racist. The board and the superintendent did not do anything to maintain decorum in that situation. And in fact, one member of the board and one member of the leadership team applauded that statement. I think that's abhorrent.
Bridget.
So my understanding is that after the incident that Bob is referring to, there was an equity audit. And part of what that equity audit revealed was that we do have some things in Falmouth that we need to spend some time looking at. One piece for me that feels especially critical is the fact that students can be taking the same class and receive very different levels of curriculum and instruction depending on who the teacher is. That is something that we need to fix. I think through opportunities for professional development and having time to work as a collaborative body, our teachers and staff can revisit those syllabi or conversations that happen in class and can try to align more the content of the courses so there aren't inequities for our students around the subject matters. I also read in the report that there's a disappropriate amount of young women who are receiving support in the math and elevated advanced math programming. And we used to have a course at Falmouth called High Math or Advanced Math, and that has been eliminated, but it hasn't been replaced with anything. So how are we going to meet the needs of especially our young women and our young girls who are capable of having more rigorous math work? I believe that alignment and professional development and working with teachers and having conversations with heads of buildings about how to fix these truly inequities that exist in our schools is a way for us to move forward and work on those issues as a district. Thank you.
As a BIPOC family, I know that I was very interested in being able to read the entire equity audit report. I can't say that I was fully surprised at the findings in the equity audit report, but I'm so appreciative that those issues came to light. Some of the issues that were most striking to me is that at the time of the equity audit, there were no children of color other than Asian students identified in our gifted and talented program, including for students who had been in gifted and talented programs in other districts and then moved to our district were not eligible. I see that there is inequity in the special education programming and that access, that we still have work to do in terms of aligning our schedules to match with religious holidays so that all students can participate, whether it's athletic events, academic events, such as exams. One of the areas that I also was very concerned about and hoping that this can be a prioritization for the school board is that there are a number of areas that we still don't yet understand that were highlighted in the equity audit report because the data was disaggregated. And I have had feedback from teachers, from other administrators that, well, this is an area where there is no problem. The equity audit report didn't reveal a problem. The data just wasn't broken down in a meaningful way for us to say that this group is experiencing this as compared to another group. It doesn't mean that there isn't a problem. It means that we need to look and that we need to develop a process for that data collection so we can continue to understand the needs of our ever-changing and very dynamic district. The data collection process should be both quantitative and qualitative. Again, we want to engage the voices of community, parents, and of students so that we can fully understand the issues at hand and can develop strategies and policy to support that.
Thank you. And the next topic is budget. And Bob, you will go first. The question is, how should the school board balance the need to manage the tax burden on the community while providing quality education, given that state funding levels have been changing? Also, regarding Falmouth's school budget, is there money being spent that you think would be better spent elsewhere, or an area where you think more money should be spent? Please be specific.
I've heard other candidates and board members, school board members, describe the budget process as robust. I've watched every aspect of it this year, both at the town council and at the school board level, including finance committees of both. It's not. We're spending more than $2,000 more per student per year than Cape or Greeley, if you want to consider them comparable on test scores alone. Our student to teacher ratio is probably in the 11.5 or so range, when the other two school districts I mentioned are in the 13 point. I asked one leading school board member, current, why we are spending more than Greeley or Cape Elizabeth, and she responded that we had more electives. So I asked for that information as well. I only got it recently. In terms of electives, and we talk about electives at the high school level only, we have 270 classes in the elective space. Of those 200, and make sure just distinguish courses and classes. Of those 270 classes, 26 have 8 or fewer students in them each, one teacher, 8 or fewer. 5, which are classified as science classes, have 3 or 4 students in them. Now, I had this conversation with a woman in the neighborhood yesterday, and she said, well, are these offered otherwise? I said, yes, these courses are all offered in another period. I have no problem asking probing questions. I think they should be asked. I found that there was no drill down with respect to the main EPS system. That's the system by which each school district is supposed to be getting 55% reimbursement. Falmouth receives a 32% reimbursement. There are no metrics that I could find that compare our school system to others, and I would submit that the best comparable we should be looking at is Gray New Gloucester. This is based on my study and analysis, in which they have efficiency in terms of a cost of $17,466 and achievement of 8th grade math NAEP of an 85, which compares favorably to us. Thank you.
So a lot of the school's budget is employee payroll and benefits. And the schools represent a large portion of the tax rate because Falmouth school system is one of the largest employers in the town. And it's certainly the largest publicly funded one. I do agree our budget process needs to be revisited. I think we need to start earlier. From what I understand in the past, there was a joint finance committee between the school board and the town council. I would be in favor of looking at that option again. I believe that identifying priorities, explaining decisions, looking for cost-cutting, cost-saving measures that are not student-facing should be the priority. I also think we understand as a town that we work with the schools. That's how it's been here in Falmouth for a long time. Our schools impact our property values. And so the fact that we have such robust schools benefits all of our investments in our properties. I think that Falmouth is a wonderful place to live and a great place to raise a family. And the reason why many of us come back here is for the schools. I would hate to see any drastic measures be taken with our budget that would compromise our ability to give quality education to our students. Thank you.
As I've said earlier, I do think that the budget process needs to be looked at again, particularly as it pertains to beginning the process much earlier so that there's more time to deliberate, more time to get creative about where money can be spent, where we can get a little leaner with the budget. In the past year, for the budget that was just approved by the school board and just voted on unanimously by the town council, I was really encouraged to see that there were areas where perhaps the answer wasn't a straight no, as it related to, for example, buses, investing in a new bus and other transportation costs, uniforms in athletics, but the answer was not right now. So I think looking at how we can prioritize our investments and balance that with the needs of, for example, the one campus vision that demonstrates the need for a new middle school. Working on that prioritization is particularly important. I do think that the money is best spent in the largest category, which, as Bridget just said, is for the educators, and continuing to support changes in our landscape, such as now it's required to have paid parental leave, and the money needs to be there as that law goes into effect on January 1st of 2025. There are areas that need to be prioritized, and I think that can be best done by beginning the process earlier, but again, engaging in good conversation and deliberation.
So I'm going to echo some of the same statements. Falmouth's budget is over 80% salaries. I think it's important that we, like I said earlier, we attract and retain the best teachers, because that's how we educate our students. The school is feeling the same economic pressure the rest of us are feeling, increased cost of goods and services. Their health insurance premium just went up 11% this year. They were expecting it to be 8%. They found out it's 11%. They're going to have to find money for that. In order to even in your house, when you want to balance your budget, you have to look at wants versus needs. And it starts with you sitting around a table and talking about what the important things are. And that's what needs to happen with Falmouth, sitting around the table with the school board, the administrators, the teachers, because they're in the classroom. They know what's working, they know what's not working, they know what they need. Start earlier in the year to develop a really comprehensive plan that the community can be proud of. And the budget is where I get a little happy because I'm a previous accountant, right? That's my background. And so I did dig into the EPS formula. I got all giddy with the Excel spreadsheets. And I was shocked to see that Falmouth has a bigger burden for local taxpayers because the state thinks we have more money. So I looked at Falmouth versus Cumberland, and Falmouth had a $3.1 billion valuation, which was $814 million more than Cumberland. And based on their calculation, and it's a strict calculation, you can do nothing about it, that directly resulted in $5.4 million that they think Falmouth should contribute to its own education more than Cumberland. So we are going to have to get creative and thoughtful about how we do this. We need to do it with a scalpel, not a sledgehammer, because we don't want to break the great work that is happening in our schools.
Our next topic is mental health. And Bridget, you will be first. Falmouth School's mission and strategic vision statement calls for students and staff to be proactive in addressing issues of mental health. Describe what that means to you and how the school board should participate in this goal.
So a quote I saw recently really applies to this topic. It's a Brene Brown quote, and it says, belonging is the opposite of fitting in. And we want everyone to belong, right? This is a community where we want everyone to belong. And I think there are a tremendous amount of resources. I was just looking through the handbook of the Falmouth High School, and there's developmentally appropriate needs based on the age demographic. And there's information to that effect in each one of these handbooks. But I felt really satisfied when I saw all of the different resources listed at the Falmouth High School for kids that maybe need some additional support. I think that the impact of teachers, again, I feel like they're the boots on the ground. They see these kids every day. If there's a difference in mood or there's a difference in presentation, they're going to be the first ones to notice, right? So the developmentally appropriate interventions are specific to buildings, but I feel like the school board, in terms of its communication with the teachers, in its ability to understand that, okay, we're all doing this together. Everyone in the community needs to feel like they belong. And how do we do this? Through accountability, through transparency, through modeling. And I think that that's going to be one of the ways that we take care of our students and their mental health so that everyone feels like they belong.
One of the things that the staff have consistently been requesting is having more support and more space in their schedule, as well as resources for collaboration. This is also true for the team that addresses mental health issues within our schools. So I'm speaking specifically to the social workers, our guidance counselors, our RTI staff, and other behaviorists. They need more time to collaborate. They're seeing an increase in referrals. For example, in the fall, the elementary school saw a significant increase in referrals, with 60% of those referrals being for anxiety. This is in the elementary school. It was cited that the reason for this is because of, quote, the pressure to perform, end quote. We want to continue to challenge our students to high achievement standards. I do think that is really important, but we also need to be aware that this is an issue that's starting as early as elementary school. And that collaboration with these teams, and you know that mental health is interconnected with behavioral health, it's interconnected with our emotional and social well-being, that this needs to be addressed from an interdisciplinary approach. If anyone reads the Forbes magazine just had an article that came out on Monday that's titled something to the effect that bird watching helps to improve mental health and reduce distress. Granted, the cohort that was being examined are college students, but we see in the One Campus vision, where in that process, we've engaged student voices in our community, that they're asking for more opportunities for outdoor learning, for outdoor spaces. They're looking for what they call chill spaces. They're expressing a need to have other resources to promote their mental health. And again, I know I've touched on this once already, I'm touching on it twice and then probably a third time. But I do think that looking at personal use of tech and how that is impacting our adolescents' mental health.
I would also like a chill space in my home. I do think that this question dovetails with another that we're going to get about the cell phone discussion, which has ramped up at the schools as it should. I think the book that we're all reading or trying to read by John Haidt is really bringing to light some of the destructive behaviors that cell phones are bringing to our children. I was glad to see at the last school board meeting, the elementary school principal and the middle school principal address this topic. At the elementary school, they have rules, no cell phone. If you have a cell phone, it's in your backpack, in your locker all day long. And they don't seem to have much of a problem because they're still pretty young. At the middle school, they get a little more pushback, but the cell phone is in your backpack, in your locker all day long. High school is more nuanced because you've got teenagers that have had cell phones in their hand for a very long time. But this is going to be a combined community effort. It's not just going to be one rule and we're done. We're going to need parents, teachers, the entire community to come together and agree on how we're going to go forward with this. The other thing about mental health is the kids feeling safe in school. And I think I touched on this before, the relationships with the adults in school. I know my kids definitely have teachers in that school they know they can talk to if they know that they care about them. And that's really important, that they feel safe in the school. When you feel safe, you can open up your mind and learn. And I know that they have social workers in the school. In the middle school, they have one for each grade, and that social worker moves with the kids to the next grade for continuity. And that's part of the budget, and we need to make sure we continue to have these resources for these kids. Thank you.
I recognize that youth today are feeling more pressure and less satisfaction than any generations before them, and I think it's troubling to all of us. I have not studied the social and emotional learning initiatives closely, nor have I had an opportunity to assess how effective they are in terms of design and application. I can set out a few core principles that I think work well for everyone and should work well for our students. They may be hard to implement and they may be challenging. I do not believe that schools should substitute for family. I believe we spend too much time on screens. I don't think we spend enough time reading. We do not talk to each other enough. I believe in being outside. I believe in play. I believe in riding bicycles. I believe in being physically active, not necessarily limited to organized sports. I believe in the restorative power of work. I believe in that we achieve fulfillment by helping others. And I believe we lead by example.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it sounds like you want to talk about it, so let's go there. Given the recent research and publicity regarding children and adolescents' use of technology and social media, what is an appropriate cell phone policy for Falmouth schools? And Tiffany, you'll be first.
This has been a really difficult topic for me to explore because I really value all of the perspectives that are coming up both in private conversations and public conversations. I'm hearing from some people who are advocating for a complete ban, and I see the valid points in that. I am also hearing from the parents, if I take candidate hat off for a moment, and saying, but if there was a safety issue in the school, I want to be able to text my child and know that they're safe. There's a lockdown. Are you okay? And that really, that speaks to me. That said, I really do think that research is demonstrating that there is a deleterious effect of technology, particularly recreational use of technology, the personal use of technology, the social media on our kids' mental health. I would like to see that we're making an evidence-based decision. And so this is one area where I do think the community voices are really important. The student voices are important, but I'd also really like to get into what the research is telling us. I think if we make an evidence-based decision, that looks like making a ban on cell phones in our schools across the 3 schools. That is a difficult and daunting task when you look at what other neighboring school districts are doing, such as Greeley, Freeport, Brunswick, Yarmouth. They do not yet have anything that's in writing that is front-facing. You look at the Maine Principal Association website, and we try to get a read on what are they doing throughout the state. There are very few schools that have taken this step to make a complete ban. That can be a challenge, but we can also see that as an opportunity to essentially chart our own course, not to be corny with a pun, but to be a leader in this area and really prioritize our students' well-being and again, making evidence-based decisions.
And it goes to.
So this is another one of those areas where reasonable people can disagree, and they're going to disagree because this is a really passionate topic for people, and people have legitimate reasons for wanting their children to have phones and legitimate reasons for them not to want their children to have phones. So this big changes take time, they take thoughtful approach, they take collaboration. Each of the schools has a policy right now about cell phones that I talked about during my last question, but we need to talk. Again, another thing, talk to the teachers. Is it working? Are they the ones that have to enforce it? Is that taking time away from their class time when they have to pick out every kid that's, sneaking in their pocket for their cell phone? So we need to talk to the administrators and the teachers and the parents about what's going to work, what makes sense. And at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our kids. And how do we get there? Because a ban doesn't equal compliance. We all know this. They ban tobacco, they ban drugs. I'm sure some of that is happening in the school, right? So we have to work hand in glove with the teachers and administrators to find a solution that works and is enforceable, because we all want our kids to be happy and healthy.
Before pulling out the petition papers to run for school board, I went and talked to Matt Pines. Matt Pines had been on the board up until, he's an educator and had been on the board up until last year. I was a little jealous in talking to Matt because he, among other candidates that put their names in between 2014 and 2020, got on with 25 signatures and 1 vote. That's not the case today, and I think this dialogue is helping. I applaud Matt's recent initiative to look seriously at a cell phone ban in schools. I did find a Common Sense Media report that shows that teens on average are spending 43 minutes per day on cell phones during school hours. Many of these messages, according to the report, are coming from parents. It would be reaffirming for me to see that the parent community and caregiver community in Falmouth would support a ban. I would like to watch that process and certainly would be interested in participating in it.
So Leslie talked about the policies in the different buildings, and I want to share what felt particularly impactful at the last school board meeting. Was a young woman who's a senior this year came and spoke to the community about her relationship with her device. And she discussed how profoundly it impacted her relationships in a negative way. She found it interrupted her sleep. She found that she was having difficulty connecting with peers. All of the things that the research says that Tiffany touched on, the research says she shared with all of us at the meeting. But I also understand that we do need a collective effort. This is going to be a cultural shift, right? Not everyone has the wherewithal of this young woman to say, I need to stop. This is teetering into addictive territory. But I also think she truly could educate some of her peers. If we can get buy-in from the students, have workshops around the fact that these devices do not have your best intention in mind, use some of Bob's skills around work and exercise and time in the outdoors, and give them other options to connect with peers. That might be one way that a student could say, oh, I don't think I need this device right now. or this doesn't feel good to me. But those are conversations we have to have together. We also need buy-in from the parents, as Bob pointed out. I'm not shocked that parents are a significant part of that communication discourse that's happening with the devices. I think that it has to be, again, a collective community shift, and we need to shift the culture around these devices. COVID made them sort of essential pieces to our process. Now we need to start to look at where can we take them out of our day? What can we do in the classrooms without the devices? And that will be a healthy way to move forward.
Okay. We have time for one more question on the topic of safety. The school board is responsible for the safety of students and staff. What is currently in place to ensure safety, and what might you introduce to make students and staff safer?
So rightfully, each of the schools has a safety plan. And I know that the school works very closely with the police department on that. They have their part of the plan listed on the website, but rightfully so, as a resident, as a parent, I don't want to know the details of that plan, because if I knew the details of the plan, it wouldn't be a safety plan, right? But I know that there's a close relationship with the school and the police force. We have 2 SROs in the school that wander through the school, get to know the kids. They're a calm presence there. The drills are run professionally. That's part of the response plan. It wasn't actually a drill a few weeks ago. They had a wire tripped or something and the alarm went off. And the teachers really thought it was a lockdown. And my daughter told me that her teacher followed, the plan to a T. The teacher thought there was something going on, and she put them in the corner, stood there, kept them calm for, I think it was 45 minutes. All the kids thought it was a drill. The teacher thought it was real. And which is, she probably went home and had something to drink that night. But the way my daughter described it, I was so thankful at how professional that teacher was in a time of stress. So I know that there are adults in the building that are there for these kids. This is Hand-Gun Safety Awareness Month. They have that on the website. And I know that they review the safety plan every year. Where we could see improvements, we have a very open campus. High schoolers, it's great that all 3 schools are on the same campus. High schoolers go to the elementary school a lot and are buddies with the elementary school kids. But we do have the portables. Kids come in and out of those portables all during the day because we don't have the space inside the school. And as we're looking at the master campus vision, that might be a way to secure the building a little bit more if we can find space inside the building for these classes. Thank you.
I don't know who else shares this background, but I have been an armed police officer. However, I want to temper that by indicating that it was on Martha's Vineyard for the summer. That does not make me an expert in school security, I recognize, and I think this is a very difficult question for a non-incumbent who has not been read into the process and procedures to respond to. I have noted in various meetings that there's a focus on eliminating or reducing the number of portable classrooms. I think that's laudable, and I think that ties out to security and safety because those classrooms are not able to be secured with some of the methods that we know about and that I think have been recognized, including access control, lockdowns, hardenings, barricades, safe rooms, training, drills, and live exercises. Understandably, that information is available on a need-to-know basis only, and without reading any more information into it, I don't think I have more to offer.
So I will start by saying that I feel extremely comfortable dropping my son off at Falmouth Elementary School every day. And that's largely because of the professionals and the teachers that I know undergo training that I am not privy to as a parent to help keep our children safe. I also feel that having these conversations in a developmentally appropriate way is the best way that each building can help our students understand how to feel safe. I think that the school board also works as a collaborative body in the sense that they talk to other boards from other towns and other cities and other places to come up with and hash out best practice models for how to keep students and teachers safe. I think that our students, when I see them engage with the two SRO officers, student resource officers, they feel secure. They feel taken care of. They have a fun, playful relationship. And I think that that is also something that continues to keep the students feeling safe and the teachers feeling safe. And I do trust the town and Chief Kilbride and his relationship with the superintendent and the plans around safety at the school.
I'm aware that our superintendent has put in energy to foster really strong relationships with the police department as well as the fire department, so that there are good plans and good communication in place. As we've already discussed, there are emergency safety plans in place, part of which can't be known to the public so that they can be executed well without any compromise. As we've also talked about, the school resource officers, they are really absolutely lovely and are building rapport with our students so that they know that if they have a safety concern, they can address it, whether that means that student doesn't feel safe or they have heard something that poses a risk besides. One of the areas that I am really curious to see how it plays out and would love to participate in is thinking about, again, the one campus vision. It does sound like there is part of that vision looking at how to increase community resources. For example, repurposing the old middle school into a community resource center. I, for one, as an open water swimmer and triathlete, am very jazzed about the idea of a pool. But my also first reaction to that was thinking, as we're drawing more people from the public, more people from the community who may not necessarily be from Falmouth. I can tell you, I utilize resources in other towns. How do we ensure safety? How do we look at having safety in an area on the campus that we're looking to expand and further open to the community? That is a big concern to me. Certainly, there are consultants who specialize in crime prevention through environmental design. I hope that there is such consultation that's involved in that process, so we can be mindful of moving forward in terms of our plans and our goals.
Thank you. Okay, we're a little short on time, but I want to give you time to have a closing statement. Timers, could we do a minute and a half?
Sure.
Okay. Take a deep breath. The first one is going to be Bob. You get 90 seconds to get your last thoughts in.
Acronyms, in my experience, are often used by systems to keep the uninitiated at bay. RTI, for example, is an acronym we hear out here, response to intervention. I handled acronyms. I taught myself workers' compensation, then I taught a course in terms of speaking like an adjuster in 30 different acronyms. I have no agenda in running for the school board. I mentioned the acronyms in that process because I believe that any of us who are motivated to learn can apprehend, and we don't need to defer to experts. Anything that is understandable and comprehensible, it should be accessible to us. I'm willing to work collaboratively, but I also have no fear of asking questions. I have no fear of reprisals, which is something I've heard from folks that I've talked to out there who have felt that way when they've raised issues. I hope you recognize I'm a serious candidate. I hope you recognize I have a unique skill set. I hope you recognize I have a seasoned perspective and an eagerness to work, and I hope I can earn your vote. If you see me out there on my bicycle with a campaign sign in the rear, after you pass me, please do.
Falmouth is my home. I've lived here for most of my life. My husband and I worked hard, and actually my entire family tolerated us so that we could be patient and find our forever home here, so that our children could grow up here. I absolutely have an agenda. Strong quality education that comes from foundations, back to basics curriculum, academic rigor, the unique niche nature of special ed. And this means building relationships with teachers and administration, having conversations with one another, having the school board members be transparent around what it is, the work that we're doing and how it's going to affect each building and all of our students. I want to give back to my community that gave me so much. Mr. Spring, if you're watching this, it's not hubris. It's just my turn to do my part. Some of the best classes I took were at Falmouth High School, and I'm grateful for my experience in this town. And I love being a part of this community. I just want to end by saying, fear the wheel and roll now.
I really enjoyed my time here in Falmouth. This is a really special community, and this is coming from someone who's lived in other parts of Maine for almost 40 years. There's something really special about the people here. It's also really special to see the degree of community engagement. I have been in other school board meetings in other towns where I've lived because I've always wanted to be an active participant. And it is impressive to me, the attendance, the willingness to come forward and to speak up. I have been committed to doing work within our schools, particularly in the elementary school where my son is, but I understand that if elected, being on the school board means planting seeds that may not actually sprout in my son's time. So this is not just about a personal agenda or a personal investment. I really do want to invest in this community. I really want to prepare our students, particularly through the work of the school board, for good, healthy, positive contributions as not only local citizens, but as global citizens. I acknowledge that the world is profoundly different today than it was in 1999 when I graduated, that I can't have a mindset that is rooted in that time. Our students, my son, for example, is one of the students who began kindergarten by Zoom, right? They have a really different relationship with the world, with one another, with technology, and really would like to help shape and form what that experience is so that, again, they're prepared for the world.
I'm deeply passionate about education in this town, and I want to see Falmouth schools with evidence-based curriculum, high standards, a safe learning environment, teachers supported by administration that have enough time during the day to actually teach their classes. I want to be respectful of taxpayer dollars, use our money wisely and efficiently, because the work to improve the schools is never done. I'd like to use my recent experience in all the schools and my professional background to achieve these goals. And quick story, when my husband was told that he had the opportunity to move here, I had a pod packed, a house on the market, the kids enrolled in Falmouth Elementary and in spring sports. And he still didn't have a signed offer letter. And a neighbor said, wouldn't it be funny if we moved before Scott? And I said, we might, because the kids start school in a week. And we moved here April break. Monday morning, Ryan's teacher, Mrs. Mildrum, met us at the school at 8:30 in the morning, walked us through the school for an hour and a half, showing Ryan and Sierra everything about the school because she knew they'd be, nervous. That was her spring break. She didn't need to do that. She offered that up to me. And I want to make sure we ensure a future where Falmouth attracts and retains teachers like Mrs. Mildrum, who go above and beyond for their students. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, candidates. Thank you for stepping up to serve your community. Audience, can we give them a round of applause? Thank you, Falmouth Memorial Library, the League of Women Voters of the Portland Area Forums Committee, Jen Lancaster from the League of Women Voters, Terry Robbins and Ann Lunt for being our timers, members of the Planning Committee for this event, candidates, and audience members for participating in this forum. As a reminder, this was recorded. It will be available on the League of Women Voters YouTube page. Please collect information on your way out about the different candidates. You have a few moments. The library closes at 7. You have a few moments to talk to the candidates before they go. Try to capture them. I know they want to talk to you. And a ring was found in the parking lot. Rather large ring. If it's yours, please go to the front desk and describe it, and they will return it to you. And last but not least, one more round of applause. This is hard work. Thank you, candidates, and I wish